Hi again. So this morning I was getting ready to make my tea and I realized that this is something that we get questions about sometimes, so I thought it might be helpful if I made a video of how I make my tea. This is a mix that I made myself. These are all the ingredients that I have in it right now, and it's different every time I make it. Next time I make it, it will be different again. You can see I've got some chamomile in here. This is chamomile from my yard last year, and here's some, I think that's alfalfa. That's also from around here. My sister gave it to me, but you can see a whole bunch of different herbs in there. I keep it in this ice cream bucket because it holds a lot and it has a lid and it's easy to carry around. It has a handle. So that's my tea bucket. This is my tea cup that I use. I don't use a mug most of the time, and the reason for that is because many times I make my tea and then I have to run an errand or go somewhere, or even on the days that I am working and teaching. I teach at the local hospital. I am a registered nurse, and I teach in their education department to other nurses. So I teach education classes for nurses. So on the days that I'm doing that, I like to have my tea still, and a mug isn't very convenient in a car when I have to carry it around. So this is the one that I'm using. I have used other types. Let me pause so I can show you. Here's another bottle that I have used. This one is made of plastic. It is BPA free. It's got a nice fine metal mesh strainer inside of there, but I don't really like that it's plastic. Let me pause for a second. Okay, to take off the lid. So this is what the lid looks like. So there's this sipping part in there. It's stained from the herbs that I've used in there. Let's see if I can get it out one-handed here. Thought I had loosened it enough. I might have to pause again. Okay, now I have it. So this is the strainer. The mesh is very fine, which I like. I like having a smooth tea where I don't have bits of leaves in my tea. If I get one from time to time, it's not a huge deal, but generally I like to have a smooth tea. But again, that's also plastic, which is not my favorite. It eventually cracks and it does break down. So I started looking for a glass one. This is actually a sample bottle that I've got because I'm working on sourcing one. I do like this design. I'm looking at a different design right now, so if I find one that I really like, I will show you. So this is what the lid looks like. This is a nice one because it's dual end. It does have a dual end. I'm gonna pause again to show you the infuser. Okay, so what I meant by dual end is that the bottle is the same on both sides, and the infuser is attached here on whichever end you want to put it on. I was concerned about the design because I've read reviews about infusers on the bottom that they have trouble with them leaking. This one has not been a problem at all, which I'm happy to say. I also like this. So this is borosilicate glass. Don't know if I pronounced that right. And then this infuser is stainless steel and a very fine mesh as well. And this infuser also is much larger than the other infuser that I have here. So it holds a lot more herbs. What that ends up meaning is that I can easily infuse my herbs at least twice, which I do commonly. I'll make 2 infusions out of the same leaves, leaving space in this infuser. So I fill it up. I'll show you this in a minute too, probably about here. So there's space for them to expand. They don't get too mashed up in there when they expand. And then after the second infusion, I compost it. Well, I'm sorry, I give them to my chickens actually. They love the old tea leaves. So I'm going to pause again because I need to wash and rinse this out, and then show you what I do from there. Okay, so I've got my infuser washed out and I put some herbs in it. I used a spoon to put it in, so I don't know how easy it is to tell, but it's about halfway up the infuser is how, well, a little bit further that I have that filled up. And that's from my blend that I made myself. I'm going to add some marshmallow or some mallow root to that. In a previous video I mentioned that Some of these herbs tend to dry me out a lot, and I can tell that because the skin on my fingers gets really dry. So see how dry that is? And I haven't been working out in the yard because it's been so rainy, so I know it's not from that. I know it's because this tea is drying me out. So that's why I've added that root, and now I'm going to screw it all together, and I heat it up, have my water heating up on the stove, so I'll be back in a minute again. Okay, so I screwed everything back together, at least the bottom, and I poured some honey over my infuser. We are fortunate to live in a place where we have 2 companies that have local honey, and I can even buy their local honey at pretty much all the grocery stores in town. Stock the honey from these local companies. So I just buy local honey in the grocery store, and I'm waiting for my water to heat up. And then I can add tinctures that I might need. And I'm not going to put these all in, but these are examples of some of the tinctures that I will use sometimes. So almost every day I'll put a little bit of lemon balm in. That is lemon balm from my yard that I tinctured. This is maca glycerite. I added that last year after I did some research about maca and felt that it would be helpful to me. And I do think that it has helped. It has helped me. Skull cap. I don't use that every day. This has a different label on it, but the tincture that's in it now is some that I made myself. This is vervain. As you can see, I had something else in here and relabeled it. Also tincture that I made. I do not use vervain every day. And yellow dock is another common one that I will use. This is tincture made from yellow dock that did grow at my mom's house. I don't use it every day. Probably once or twice a week I like to add some yellow dock. That helps with liver cleansing. Back here I've got some yarrow, also made from the plants in our yard. The date on there, it's probably not totally accurate. There may be some of that original tincture in here, but when we make new tincture, we just add it to any old tincture we had. So I do not use yarrow every day. Here's some elderberry tincture. Also don't use that every day. Oregon grapefruit, another one that's not used every day. And a Brigham's tea tincture, also not used every day. I have these out because my kids recently have been getting over some respiratory virus, and I mix their tinctures in with a vitamin T mix that I make for them, and they take that mixed with that vitamin mix without any problems. So I will pause again and show you once I cover this with water. Okay, I just added water to my tea, and I'm going to let it infuse for at least 15 to 20 minutes. You can see bubbles coming up as air gets into the infuser. I don't like putting boiling water over the leaves, just very hot water. So if I lose track of what's going on, I just let the water come to a boil and then take it off, let it cool down for a few minutes, and then I pour it over the top. You can see it's already starting to change color. So I'll come back and show you what it looks like at the end. And I did add a couple of tinctures this morning to my tea.